Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for confirming that you can see my screen. So a few house rules before we start the session. Kindly mute your mic as the session is going on, so that we don't have interferences coming from background noise. Also, if you cannot hear me, please let me know through the webinar chats. Also, if my screen is not moving according to what I'm saying, do let me know also in the chat. So the chat is basically the place where we'll have a lot of interaction. Also, would have a Q&A session at the end of the initial walkthrough, right? So if you have any questions, kindly note them down, and for the Q&A session, or you can actually put them inside the chat. I would go through it and read them when we begin the Q&A session. Okay. Please let me know if you were in yesterday's webinar. Okay. I would like to have a fair idea as to how many new merchants we have in today's session, and also how many merchants from yesterday are also in a session, so that it gives me a fair idea as to the makeup of the room. Also, in between sessions, Nana Call would jump in or might jump in to clarify a few items, right? And also give more explanation on a couple of features that will be discussed. That might happen during the Q&A session. All right. So for your information, this webinar is being recorded. So other merchants that cannot join us for this particular session will be able to view it later and then sending their questions or comments and suggestions, right? So thank you very much once
Sonny,
again. Okay.
Sonny, if you can hear me, we only have one person who didn't join yesterday's session. All the others are part of yesterday's. Yeah, so that is it.
Okay, that's great. All right. So for our merchant that wasn't able to join yesterday's session, we have a recording of yesterday's webinar, and we'll be uploading it by close of day today. The idea was to do it before noon today, but then we had a few challenges. So we'll be doing it by close of day today, and we'll share the link with each and every single one of us through the same channels that you got the invites. Also, today's session that is being recorded will be sent out via the same channel that you received the invites, so that you can reference it at a later time. All right. Thank you very much, Nanako, for the clarification on that. Okay. So I would be working between my slides, which basically you can see right now. Currently on the screen, you have Slydepay merchant operations, webinar and training, and also jumping onto a browser to do a demo of the functionality that I'll be talking about, right? So today's session will basically be picking up from where we left off yesterday. I'm going to start with a quick recap of what was done yesterday. So yesterday, basically, we focused on understanding the makeup of a Slydepay merchant services. We went through what the Slydepay merchant services actually offers merchants, both merchants that are operating online and offline. Then we looked at the functionality that the platform offers. So from in-store collections to online collections to the ability to manage collections from a portal in real time, be able to also view and monitor settlements as they occur, the ability to manage users, sub-accounts for users that are within your organization, and would basically be viewing specific parts of the collections or handling operations around specific parts of your collections. And then also we touched on the fact that there are integrations that can be done by REST APIs, right? And integrations happen in two main ways. You basically can integrate into the Slydepay ecosystem to allow payment collections to be done for your web stores and e-commerce sites. And then also it's possible for us to integrate into your billing systems to pick bills and expose it on our marketplace, for which you can have collections done for those bills, right? And then we jumped into the meat of the new platform. We look at account access. Basically, as a merchant, how would you be able to access your account? And we looked at items of the platform from the point of view of a merchant with admin or supervisor rights and the role and the rights. And once we got into the platform, the main focus from yesterday had to do with monitoring and tracking payments and then associated orders, right? So we looked at transaction management. On transaction management side, we looked at the transaction summaries. We saw the different kinds of summaries that are presented on the transaction page. Then we looked at the transaction grid itself, where you see the list of entries of transactions or collections that are being done in real time. Then we looked at transaction detail view, where you can go into the details of a particular transaction and see the time the transaction was done, the customer that made the payment, the payment option that they used, and then the status of the transaction. And we looked at different ways in which you can filter transactions and search the transaction grid, and then also the ability to download reports for offline use, be it recons or operational use by other departments within the organization. So that had to do with transactions. And then we looked at orders, basically, and what orders were, the difference between orders and transactions. And we looked at the order history grid, basically being able to see all the orders that have come through from the different channels, be it USSD, your online integrations, or the Slydepay marketplace. Then we looked at the details of an order, and basically yesterday the point was made that if you want to understand what happened with a transaction, the best place to start is the order, because the order gives you the full life cycle of the transaction, from the point where the customer decided to enter their payment reference to the point where they made the payment, processing of the payments, the money was collected, to when the order was actually fulfilled. So you can actually track the life cycle of a transaction starting from the point of an order. That also makes it the point where you actually start doing your troubleshooting from. So if you have any reports from a customer or you want to understand an issue with that had to do with a collection or a payment, then you would start from the point of the orders. And the order page has enough tools for you to be able to filter the orders that have come through, and then get to see orders based on the date and time that they were done, filter based on the different statuses of the order, and then based on the services that collections or payments were done for, right? And then you have the check status functionality that allows you to check the current status of an order. In between processing, you can see that the status of an order might change, and it doesn't update as quickly as you want on the page, but you can check the status of the order to see if payment has been made or fulfillment has been complete, right? And then there was a search functionality for orders. And then we did a little demo yesterday to see how a customer would come onto the Slydepay marketplace, find a service that they want to pay for, and then once payment was done through a payment option they selected, the merchant was able to see in real time that payment that was done. So that was what happened in yesterday's session, a quick recap. of yesterday's session, right? So for today, what we'll be looking at is basically onboarding and management of sub-account users across the Slydepay platform. We'll be looking at branch management. I don't know how many merchants here have branches, and then basically manage collections or payments based on the different branches. But then we have a functionality that supports that, and then we'll be going, we looking at that, right? And then we look at understanding how to set up and manage payment devices across both physical and digital collection channels. So basically in-store collection devices, and then online collection apps. Okay, so this have to do with your USSD point of sale in store, and then your web integrations that you do. Okay, then the last but and also important thing that we'll be looking at is settlement. So at the end of the period when money has been collected, how do we make sure that the money gets into your account, and then what's available for you as a merchant to track and monitor the settlements that are actually being done, and also reporting around settlements. What does the platform offer? So that's what we'll be looking at in today's session, right? So I like to quickly jump into the meat of what we'll be looking into today, right? So first and foremost, we'll be looking at user management, and user management basically has to do with the creation of sub-accounts for users within your organization. So currently on Slydepay, you can just have one user access your merchant account. So one login access for the account. So if you have multiple people within your organization, be it the head of finance or accounting who needs to view the transactions that are coming onto the platform, right? That person would need to have the credentials to your Slydepay account. And if you have someone in store or a branch manager who needs to basically monitor transactions, you would basically have to share the credentials with that user. But then with this new platform, we've introduced sub accounts where you can create users and assign roles and permissions to these users to see various aspects and manage various aspects of payment and collections, right? Now, basically, Slydepay is giving you the tools to involve and control the access levels of other members within your organization around your collection. What we'll be looking at in terms of user management is the setting up of user profiles, assignment of access rights, updating user profile details, and being able to remove the user profiles, and ability to also search for users within a list of profiles that you have for your organization, right? So at this point, I'll be switching to a browser, and I'll be logging in as one of our test merchants currently that we'll be using today. So the merchant we'll be using today is Pinocchio. It's an ice cream wholesaler, and we'll be doing a lot of our setups using the Pinocchio merchant, right? So at this point, I am switching to my browser. Okay. All right. So this is the landing page for your merchant's login. So currently I'm entering my username and password for the user I'm going to use in explaining the features that can be done in terms of user management. I enter my password. And click enter. Okay, so I'm logged in as an admin for Pinocchio Wholesale Ice Cream Services, right? And from a glance, we can actually see the number of services that have been paid for today. You can see the number of transactions, the total amount of money that has come in for today, and then you can see there have been no reversals that have been done So basically the net transactions is the total credits that have been done for today. When we go onto the username or the profile name, you can see the unsettled funds here. So this is how much money has been collected for today, and it's yet to be settled into our bank accounts, right? And this is basically the history page that we have come to. Okay. And then we can see immediately the transactions that have been done and the ability to look at the details of the transactions in the actions tab or the actions column of the grid, right? So we are going to look at user management, right? And for user management, we come to the top menus that we have here. We look for users, and then we tap on the users menu. Okay. Okay, so what happens now is that you have the users page load up. You can see a grid with the users that we have. We have the ability here to add a new user. And then we have the ability to search for a user in the grid. And at first glance, we have the grid that shows columns with first glance information of the kind of users that we have. So we have the name of our user here. We have Rainbow Johnson. We have the username that the user is basically uses to log in. Then we have the roles that have been assigned to this particular user. So we have a general user, and most every user has a general user status. That's basically how you get to log in the first place. And then our user is a branch manager and has the ability to download reports. And then the user is tied to a branch. So as you can see, the branch, both users belong to is Ice Cream Central. And basically you can see that their accounts are enabled, their passwords haven't expired, and this is the days that the accounts were created, right? Before I actually jump into going or looking up, starting up or creating a new user, I would quickly go back here and like to, okay. So earlier on I mentioned that you can create a user and then assign different roles to the user, right? Now we have the account supervisor role when the user is created, and basically the account supervisor, which is the kind of user that I've logged in with, or the role that I've logged in with right now, has the ability to do everything that a merchant has access to, or the functionality that the merchant has access to. Then we have basically managers who can also turn up to be branch managers. They see transactions and can manage aspects of transactions that are coming from a particular branch. And then we have tellers. These are users that can manage the point of sales in the branches. And then you have basically a general user, which is every single user has the general user permissions. This allows you basically to log in, right? So these are the current roles that we have for merchants: the merchant supervisor, the managers, and then you have basically tellers that man the point of sales and the tills at the branch locations of the merchants, right? And basically these are the different things that the the users with the various roles can do. So you have the merchant admin, basically has access to the users, the transaction history, orders, branches, devices, or apps, and then basically can monitor settlements. Then their permissions are user management, branch management. They can manage devices, transaction and order management, and then settlement management. And then you have the branch managers who basically can manage users of their branch, right? Can manage transactions made at a branch, manage orders made at a branch, and then monitor settlement processing. So all they can do is basically monitor. They see when the settlement process is done, but then they're not able to download reports around settlement. And then you have tellers, or basically general users, who basically can see transactions that are coming in, and then also can man the point of sale devices within the branches. So the USSD points of sale devices within the branches, right? Okay. So back to the browser now and into the user view. So one of the things that we have actually come to do right now is to add a new user. All right. So to get into the user context, we go to add user, right? And then we enter the user's full name. And for this, I would basically try so the user called Kevin Johnson. Email would be, we enter the email kevin@gmail.com, and the email is basically going to be used as the username when the user is logging in. And then we have phone number, so we can pick a random phone number here, 02323. So that's the phone number of the user, and then you can set the temporary password for the user. And with this, an email is going to be sent to the user with that temporary password for them to change it when they are logging in for the first time. So here we set a temporary password to make sure that I can see, okay, I can see what the password is. And then the user needs to be linked to a branch, right? So when you go to a branch, you can see all the various branches that are available for the particular merchant. You can see we have Ice Cream Central and Pinocchio Osu. So for this particular user, we would select Ice Cream Central, and then we have the rights that the user basically would be assigned. You can see the general user right here. We can see the teller, which also factors into the roles. But would like to make Kevin branch manager. So we select the branch manager, and then we give him the ability to download reports also, right? And then these are allowed services. So this shows all the services that are available for the merchants for which collections are being done for. And then you can select the particular services that the user should be able to see or have access to transactional information on. And because we have just one service, I'll select Pinocchio Wholesale, and then I'll enable our user, right? So in enabling our user, it basically creates an account for the user, and then an email is sent to the user for them to sign up for the first time, right? So I click save. Okay. And then as you can see, we have Kevin Johnson. We have Kevin's email here. We have their roles and rights, the branch they are affiliated to, the account is enabled. But then because they haven't logged in before, we see that Kevin basically has their password expired as true, right? And then the date the account was created, right? So we've created a user now. We want to see if we can we want Kevin to access his account and basically start managing his branch. So what I'm going to do right now is log out as Gepetto, who is the admin for Pinocchio, and then I would log in as Kevin for the first time, right? So I'm signing out right now. And I'll be entering my username, which is kevin@gmail.com. Then we have password, and our password was password1, as you can see here. And when we're setting up Kevin, then we click enter. Now, since it's Kevin's first time of logging in, Kevin needs to set up a new password, right? So we enter the current password, which is password1, and you can see it's password1, and then we enter the new password that we want to set. And because I don't want anybody to see my password, I am not going to show this one, right? In fact, let me type it again to make sure that I type the right one. Okay, great. And then I set the password, and then you can see that password change successful. Please log in again. So I'm coming to log in as Kevin for the first time, and we go to enter the password. Okay, so we can see that we've logged in as Kevin, and if you would notice, the menus that Kevin has access to is different from what Gepetto had access to, right? Kevin basically can see history, orders, users, customers and bills, settlements, and then basically can see devices, right? But will not be able to, they can basically view devices, but they will not be able to add devices because they don't have those rights. We're sharing the different rights and roles with you and what they'll be able to do and in the manual. So please don't worry about that. You get all that information. So you have for Kevin's branch, you can see that no payment has basically been made at their branch, right? And then Kevin will be able to see the unsettled funds that has been done for the entire organization. Just have a fair amount of how much money has been done in terms of collections. Okay, Kevin has the same functionality in a sense in managing transactions for his branch, or for the branch that he's affiliated to, just like the way Gepetto does. So you'll be able to see transactions. Let's see if there are any transactions last 30 days. Oh, apologies. Okay, so there are none. So this is the view that basically Kevin, as a branch manager or a manager, would be able to have, and then view specific aspects of collections that are happening within the merchants organization, right? So I'll be logging out as Kevin now, and then we'll log back in as Gepetto to see what other things we can do in managing our users, right? Because Gepetto is an admin or a supervisor, Gepetto can do much more than Kevin can. So I'm currently going to log in as Gepetto. Enter my password. Okay, right. Okay, so we've set up Kevin. Okay, and Kevin is right here. And because we've logged into Kevin's account, you see that their password hasn't expired, right? Now we can do a couple of things on our users. We can search for our users. Basically, if you type Rainbow, you can see that Rainbow comes up. And this works well when you have like a number of users within your organization, and then you want to find one person and either reset their password or change their phone number, right? Or update a particular details on them. This search is pretty helpful, right? So start the search, and we can basically delete Kevin's account, which is one of the things that you can delete a user if the user is no more part of the organization, or we can edit Kevin's account, right? So in editing, when you click the edit button, you can see the full name of Kevin. We cannot edit Kevin's username because basically identifies Kevin on the platform, but we can update his phone number, right? In the case where Kevin has forgotten his password and is having issues and contacts the admin, you'll be able to set up a temporary password for which they'll go through the same flow as I showed you for the first time we're logging in. And then if Kevin basically moves to another branch, you can assign Kevin to a different branch, right? In a case where Kevin is basically promoted or basically demoted, you can change the rights for Kevin so that Kevin will be able to see more or have more functionality on the platform, or basically have less functionality on the platform. And then if you want to give Kevin more responsibility to view and manage other services that you provide, once those services are showing here, you can select them and Kevin would be able to have access to those services, right? And the last thing is basically the ability to enable or disable Kevin's account. So in the case where you wouldn't want Kevin to be able to log in, you can disable the account here when you click this, and then basically when he tries to log in, he'll be told that he needs to contact his administrator to have his account reinstated, right? So that's basically what you can do with the ability to update and edit the details of a user. And this functionality is only available to an admin, right? An account supervisor. So you don't just have anybody being able to edit anybody's rights, right? So that's it for account management. I believe I have gone through each and every single aspect of it. Let's look at it quickly. So as you can see, we've looked at the user profile setup, assignments of access rights, the ability to search, updating user profiles, and then to remove user profiles from the system, right? So I think we've gone through each and every single aspect of user management. Okay. I would like to remind you that if you have any questions or comments, please do put them in the webinar chat and I would read them in time. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so the next thing that we'll be moving up to is branch management, right? And merchant branches represent key locations of service delivery. So we have some merchants that have branches where they do collections, right? And in this particular session, we'll be looking at the setting up of a new branch, the ability to update branch details. You can freeze and unfreeze a branch, and then remove the branches from operation. And then you can search through your branch list if you have like hundreds of the country. You can basically search and then find a particular branch that you're looking for, and then perform an action on that branch, right? So basically, at this point, I'll be moving into the browser, and then we'll show you branch management. Okay. Okay. So we are still logged in as Geppetto of Pinocchio Wholesale Ice Cream. And now we'll be looking at basically branches. So to manage branches or to go about doing operations for branches, we would be logging in, would be basically clicking the branches menu. And as you can see, we have a couple of branches that have already been set up here. Okay. We have Ice Cream Central, which is basically their head office. And then you can see who added it. So this was set up when the acquiring of the merchant was occurring. So the initial setup of the merchant, this was actually what was done. And you can see the date that the branch was set up. And you can see a branch code, which is basically used across the platform to identify a particular branch. You can see the frozen status of the branch. You can see a branch. So Pinocchio also has been frozen. You can see the branch manager, right? And then you can get to know who in your organization or which admin in your organization added the branch. So if you have multiple users within your organizations that have supervisory rights, you can get to know who added a branch, who added a user onto the platform, right? Then you see the date also. So at this point, we'll be setting up a new branch. And to set up a new branch, okay. So you click Add Branch. Now, to set up a branch is fairly simple. You enter the name of the branch. So I'll be setting Pinocchio Syntax branch. Our branch code will be 0101. And then I have to select a branch manager for Pinocchio Spintex. And you can see here that you see all the users that have branch manager rights. And we can see Kevin Johnson that we set up early on. So we would like Kevin to be the manager of our branch, and then we click save. And as you can see, we have Pinocchio Spintex set up with a branch code of 101. Currently the branch is frozen, so once it's set up, you can't do anything with the branch immediately unless you unfreeze it. And then you have the branch manager. and you can see who an organization actually added the branch Pinocchio Spintex, and then the day in which it was added, right? So basically, this is what goes into setting up of a branch, right? So now a branch has been set up, and there are a number of other things that we can do on the branch page. We can decide that we want to update the details of the branch. Where we go, we can edit the name of the branch. Imagine we are doing a rebranding. You can decide that you want to change the name of your branch, and then you can actually assign a branch manager to one that doesn't just have a branch manager. Okay, so you can assign a branch manager, or in case you are doing some reshuffling within your organization, you can actually change who the manager of the branch is, for which they will basically see the transactions that pertain to that particular branch, right? You can delete a branch that we've seen early on, or you can also update. You can unfreeze a branch. So as you can see, you're about to unfreeze Pinocchio Spintex. Click OK. So branch unfrozen successfully, right? So this is us unfreezing Pinocchio Spintex here. So these are the main things that you can do on the branch, right? I'm guessing some people are asking that, okay, fine. So we set up a branch. What next? Okay. So branches are important because they help you monitor collections that are coming from your point of sale devices at the moment, right? In the future, we have more plans for things that we can do with branches and how even customers will be able to find your branch, right? But currently, what branches help you to do is that they help you to get to understand the collections that are coming through particular channels, which is your brick and mortar channels, right? And you can set up a point of sale device, a USSD point of sale device for Momo collections in the branch. So once we've gone through the setting up of branches and the ability to search the branch, to unfreeze a branch, to update the details of the branch and delete the branch, I think the next thing that I would be moving into once we've set up a branch is basically device management or app management. Okay, so by the time we actually go live, this feature would fully become app management, right? So what's basically or device management or app management? The payment devices are tools that enable merchants to physically and digitally process transactions through various payment channels that's offered by Slydepay. So in this particular session, we'll be looking at the different types of devices that you currently have or apps that we currently offer. And then we'll be looking at how to set up a payment device, the ability to update the device details, enable or disable a device, and then removing devices from operation. Basically, you can disable a device from operation, then to search through a list of devices that you have running in a particular branch, right? So I'm moving into my browser now, and to view and manage devices, we're going into the device section, and as you can see, it comes up to show all the devices that we have set up for our branches, right? All the devices that we have set up for our branches. Now, for merchants that accept USSD payments in store, this is very similar to the short codes that you have, right? So the USSD POS is actually synonymous to the short codes that you have, where a merchant dial, let's say, star 718, star 25, star 225 hash, and then they basically are able to make a payment to that service. Also, the devices allow you, the USSD point of sale device allows you to push payment prompts to customers in store so that they are able to complete payments. So for example, a customer has come, they purchase an item, they would like to pay with mobile money. You'll be able to use any phone. You don't need any special device. You can use any phone that you have and set it up as a USSD point of sale device, and then quickly start collecting from customers that are making payments through mobile money, right? And I'm going to walk you through that in a few seconds. But before that, I would like you to appreciate what we have here on the devices page. So we have a refresh button, which basically allows you to refresh and see the latest devices that are being added. In a setting when you have multiple admins being able to add devices in real time, when you refresh, you see the latest devices that have been added to the various branches. Now you can filter devices by device type. So here we have the API apps, which for merchants that do web collections on the current Slydepay platform is very synonymous to the API configs that your developers use, where they have an API key and then a secret that they use in authentication web payments on the Slydepay REST and SOAP APIs. So that's the API app. And then you have the USSD POS, which I've basically explained that there are point of sale devices that can be used in store, and basically you can use any phone for as a USSD device. You don't need any special device to be brought to you. You can use any phone that you have with a valid and working number to do that, right? Okay, so we can filter by device types, and then we can also filter by branch, right? So we can see the devices that are affiliated to the SU Pinocchio branch. And as you can see, we can just see one. We just set up one for SU, okay? And then we can see one for Spintex. Oh, okay, so we haven't created any devices for Spintex. And I don't think, okay, so we have one for Ice Cream Central, and you can basically view those payments devices, right? Now, what we'll be doing now is that for the Spintex branch that we just set up and assigned Kevin as the branch manager, we would like the branch to be able to do mobile money collections. And we would like to manage those mobile money collections through our own point of sale device. So the organization has a phone. It can be a YAM phone, a smartphone, right? And we would like to use that as our main point of sale device for USSD. So we need to set that up for the Spintex branch. So as an admin in the merchant's profile, you go to add devices. Now for the device, you enter a device name. So we are setting up for Pinocchio Spintex. So we do Pine Spin because we are setting up for Spintex. That's what we want to call our device. And then we select the type of device that we are setting up. Now we select the USSD point of sale device, and then we enter the mobile number that will be the unique identifier for the device anytime it is, basically the short code is entered on it, right, to generate a prompt that can be pushed to the customer. So we need a mobile number that will identify it. So I would pick 0244 303 4447. Okay, sure. So I'd like to use this number as the point of sale identifier. And then we have to enter a PIN because we don't want anyone in the branch just being able to push prompts to customers for them to make payments, right? So we set a PIN on the device, right? As you can see, I've set a simple PIN of 123, okay? And then we select the branch that we want the device to be linked to. So we have Pinocchio Spintex, and then we select Pinocchio Wholesale. So this is the service that we want the device to do collections for, right? If we have multiple services, we can assign multiple services to the device, for which when the device is initiated to do a collection, to actual service you want to collect for. Okay, so this time we have just one service. So we are picking Pinocchio Wholesale, and then we have a default service that will show up anytime, which is the Pinocchio Wholesale, and then would enable our device so that it will be basically be able to start working once we get into the shop, once we set it up. Okay, so I'm saving right now, and as you can see, Pine's been saved successfully, and you can see that we have a new device that has been set up for the Spintex branch of Pinocchio. Okay, so we've set up a device. So we set up a branch, we set up a device, and then we linked the device to the branch. Now, I like to simulate how the device will basically work inside the branch. Okay, so we have a little tester here that I would use to simulate how the device will work up to the point of when a sale would be generated. Okay, so I would basically enter the number of the device because that we just set up. So we have 233. I believe the number was 244-303-444-7. Okay, and then this is the short code. This is the Slydepay short code that we are all familiar with. So what happens is that the teller at the branch or the customer service person at the branch or whoever is at Pinocchio Wholesale who manages the place or is at the till would pick up the phone, and this is basically the phone number which we have now. Would enter the short code on the phone. So you basically open the dialer, dial *718 *25#, and then basically click send. Right now, when you click send, what happens is that we authenticate to make sure that the device is actually a correct device that was set up. Give it a few minutes. Let me check to make sure that I entered the right details of the device. Okay, 3034442. Okay, let me reset. Clear cache. Press the page. Okay, so I'll try this again. I want to make sure I'm getting the right number. Yeah, 244-303-444-7, and I click send. Okay, so it's basically recognized that the number that I entered was USSD POS device. Now it's telling me to enter the PIN for the device. So now the teller at Pinocchio has to enter the PIN of the device, and the PIN that we set was 1234, right? I can actually enter a wrong PIN to let you see what will happen. I type 12345, click send. It tells me that, sorry, invalid PIN. So what we need to do right now is that the teller would have to start all over again. Okay, so clicks the prompt, and now you have to enter the PIN again. So this time you're going to enter the correct PIN, which is 1234. Click send. Right now it tells me that, welcome Pinocchio Limited, what would you like to do? Right, and then I can do a sale, or I can do a transaction, or basically see the transaction history of collections that have been done at the branch for the day. Okay, so this is how far our simulation actually brings us with our tester. But this is to give you a fair idea as to how on your phones through USSD you'll be able to set up a point of sale device and then basically start collecting immediately on the mobile money channels that we have, or that all the mobile money channels that Slydepay enables. Right. Okay. So there's one other thing that I can actually also demo on the tester. This is we've looked at how a teller at the branch is able to set up the device and then also push a prompt to a customer. Now, in the case where a customer comes in and then you basically have the short code for Pinocchio, how does a customer make payments immediately, right? So this is how the customer will be able to make payments through USSD. And simply what we are going to do is that I'm going to enter the customer's number here. I'm going to be able to say I'm a customer. So 5410. So this is the customer's number that we are simulating. And then the customer would have to know the short code for Pinocchio, right? So Pinocchio short code is *718 *25 *233, right? So the customer dials this inside their phone dialer and then enters send. Basically, what happens is that it tells the customer this Pinocchio wholesale, basically what they're making payments for. Then they have to enter the invoice number for which they want to make the payment for. So this is my invoice number. And then you basically click send. Then it tells you that, okay, for this particular invoice, how much are you paying? So I'll enter 250 Ghana cedis, click send. Then it'll let you know, okay, you are paying 250 Ghana to Pinocchio wholesale. Do you want to confirm or cancel? We would like to confirm. Then we click send. And it tells you that kindly close this page and wait for a prompt from MTN to complete your payment. So this is where the prompt from the telco would come to the customer for the customer to make the payment, right? So this is a simulation of how a customer can make direct payments to the to you as a merchant through the USSD channel, right? So in this particular simulation, we've basically gone through the points of creating the order, entering the reference, and then executing the payments. Okay. In the back, we've basically done the payments processing also. So as Pinocchio, I can come to transactions, come to payments, and we can see here the payments that was done for 250. So you can basically see it. You can see the invoice number, and then you can look at the details of the transaction, basically, right? So these are the details of the transaction. You can see the receipt number, which comes from the telco here, and then you can see the amounts that was paid by the customer to the branch. Okay, so that is basically the setting up of a USSD point of sale device, and then also being able to use it in branch. And through our USSD simulator here, we've been able to look at how payments can be, how prompts can be generated and sent to a customer for payment, and then also how a customer, knowing the short code of the merchant, will be able to make a payment. And then as a merchant, we've been able to see how the payment will reflect in our transaction view, right? So at this point, we can see that we can see 4 transactions that are showing here. The total credit is 362.58, and then we have basically a net transactions that have been done, net value of transactions that have been done. And when we go here, we can see our settled funds as 362.58, which basically would need to be settled, right? So we've looked at device management, and for device management, we've looked at the USSD POS, how to set up the USSD point of sale device to use in-house. Now we'll be looking at the API app, which allows for online integrations for your web stores and your e-commerce sites, right? So the next thing we'll be looking at is the API app setup for e-commerce. So the same way in which we try to set up, or we did set up the USSD point of sale, we follow the same steps in trying to set up an API app. And for merchants that are very familiar with online integrations, the API app is similar to your API config that your developers use in setting up the credentials for authentication for online payments with the Slydepay REST and SOAP APIs. So to set up your API app, you basically go into devices, go to add device, and then we say that we want to set up Pinocchio online. So we do pin online basically. So Pinocchio is starting an online store, and then they would like collections to be done on that online store. So we have the device name called pin online to identify it, and then we are setting up an API app. Okay, so in setting up the API app, we have a username. So this is the unique username that we'll be using to identify the endpoint that is making the call from Pinocchio's side. So I'll just call it Pinocchio. Then we have to set a secret. So as the mentioned, you basically can do the setup. So you set a secret. A secret is basically like a password that will be used. So for purpose of this demo, I pick password. And then because it's our first time doing our integration, we can select the environment that we want this to connect to. So do we want to connect to a test environment or a live environment? Since we need to test our integration first, I'll connect to the test environment. We can also link the device, the API app to a branch also. Select the services that can be collected through this API configuration, right? And then we have a default service for which the API, if called, would immediately want to do a collection for. And then here is the domain from which the calls will be coming from. So if from your, so this is a server to server call. So you have to basically enter the domain that you would be making the call from. So if you ask your developers or your technical team that are doing the integration, they'll be able to provide you this information. And then a callback URL, if needed, most of the time is used. So when a payment is made from the web POS or the web checkout page, which is the web POS, where would you want us to redirect to? We have to redirect the user back to your site or redirect them back to your e-commerce page. So what's the URL that we hit to pass the details of the payment to that page so that you can show them that the payment was successful, the payment failed, or the payment is being processed, right? And then like, so the domain here, I would enter, I'll just say Pinocchio default domain. This is for test purposes. The callback URL, we can say that https google.com. This means that when a payment is made, it will redirect us to Google, and then we can enable the API app. We click yes, and then we save. Okay, so we can see that we have our first API credentials created for Pinocchio Online, and you pass on these details. So you pass on the API ID, which basically identifies the particular API credentials that are being passed to the service, and then you give us the identifier, which is basically Pinocchio, which will be used as the username in your API calls. And then we have the secrets that you've set. So the secret is basically secret to you. So to do your integrations, you need the API ID, you need the identifier and then your secret to basically start doing integrations. And to note, you can set up as many devices as you require. So if you have multiple online stores or multiple online shops, you can create multiple API apps to cater for each and every one of them, right? So I know in the current Slydepay that we have, which will soon become the old one, it's you can set up just one API configuration. And if you need to set up multiple API configurations, you need to get in touch with support and go through a number of operational and technical processes to get it done. But then with this new platform, you can set up as many API apps as you'd want, and then have your integrations done, test it on a test environment, and then once you are ready, you basically can move into production. Nanako, you can go ahead. Hi Nanako, I can see your hand up. You can basically go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just to clarify what you said. So for merchants that have multiple integrations, I know some of them are on this call. You know, currently you create unique Slydepay accounts for every integration you want to do on Slydepay. But moving forward, what this means is you can go to the backend to create new details which you use for your platform without necessarily creating new Slydepay account. That is basically the essence of this platform, just so you can manage a number of things at your end without necessarily coming to us. So I just wanted to add that just so we are clear on what my colleague is saying.
All right. Thank you very much, Nanako. Thank you. Okay. So a quick reminder, you can post your questions into the chat session. I see a few questions that have come in, and we'll be going into Q&A very soon. So please keep your questions coming. Okay, so we've basically gone through the process of setting up payment devices, right? We've looked at the ability to set up a USSD POS, and then the API app, and then we've seen the device setup basically. Now we'll be looking quickly into the updating, the ability to update the device details, enabling and disabling devices, and then the ability to also remove devices. These are pretty simple functionality that you can perform on the interface. So as you can see here, there's an action section, right? In the action section, you have a couple of icons here, allows you to view and edit the details. In this section, you're able to disable the device or the app. And then in this section, you can delete or remove the device from existence, right? So you can have a point of sale, USSD point of sale in a branch that you believe you don't want to use anymore. You can disable the device until a later time that you feel like you want to use it, or you can go ahead and totally delete it from the platform, right? And when we pick a device like a USSD POS and then want to edit it, you can see here the device name, the type of device as it is, the number for the device. Oh, sorry. The number for the device, the PIN, which is currently not showing for security reasons, and then the branch that is assigned to, the collections that you can, or the services that have been mapped to it, for its payments can be done through the point of sale device for, and then you have the default service, and then also the current active status of the device. So you can basically edit all those details, right? And then, as I said, you can enable or disable a device. As you can see, I'm disabling our API app. So when I disable it, that means that payments through our API channel are going to cease immediately, right? All payments to our API channels are going to cease. So this gives you control to be able to manage authentication or authorization through the channels that you have. Okay, and this is just available to the admins on the platform. We earlier on I spoke about 3 users. The account admin, we have the managers who can also tend to be branch managers, and then you have a tellers or general users who basically just see transactions coming in for services that they are allowed to see the transactions for, right? So yes, this is what goes into our device setup. So right now we've looked at the editing, updating, deleting a device, and then also freezing, disabling and enabling a device. Let me quickly enable our API app. And then you can see that collections can currently continue on our API channel, right, or through our web stores and our e-commerce platform. Okay, so we're almost done. Last but not the least, settlements. Okay, so let me basically give us a quick flashback or a recap of everything that's happened. We've looked at the ability to set up users for in our organizations, right? We can assign different rights and roles to these users, let them see transactions that are coming to particular services that we offer. And then we've been able to assign these users to branches and give them roles like branch managers, for which we've also gone and we've been able to create a branch. And in creating a branch, we've assigned a user to the branch, assigned a code for the branch, which is a unique identifier on the platform. We've seen how we can search for both users and branches, or in the user context and also the branch context. And we've gone on to set up devices or apps, as they are also known. And we've set up a USSD point of sale device, which basically can be done with any phone that we have, be it a YAM or a smartphone, or should I say a feature phone and a smartphone, and within your branches that you set up to enable you to do USSD collections. And then we've seen a simulation of how a teller within your branch is able to use the device that has been set up to quickly prepare a sale and then push a prompt to a customer. We've also been able to look at the case where a customer comes in and sees your short code, or knows the short code for your organization or the service that they are purchasing, and then enters it on their device, for which they can make payments via their mobile money wallets or any of the mobile money wallets that Slydepay provides. And then we've seen the transaction that is done on the USSD appear in the transactions view immediately once the transaction was done, right? And we've also set up API apps for our merchants who wants to build and who has an online store and would want to do collections on it. And then we've seen the credentials that their development team or the technical team will need in inputting on the join the integration, so that they'll be able to test the integration for starters and then move that integration to live by switching the environment in which they are working in also. And basically we've understood how all of this comes together to make sure that setups can be done quickly and collections can be done. Now, when collections are done or when payments are done, and then we have all that details recorded under transaction and orders, and we see our unsettled funds, how do we get the money into your bank account at the end of the period? Okay, now at the point where you're being set up onto Slydepay, if you clearly remember, you were asked your settlement preferences, whether you want daily settlements, weekly settlements, and monthly settlements, for which the merchant that we are using today for our demo, Pinocchio Wholesale Services, Ice Cream Wholesale Services, has also been onboarded onto the platform and has specific settlement preferences. Now, we've done a couple of transactions for Pinocchio today, and then we would want to settle Pinocchio, or it's time for settlement, which is basically going to run automatically, right? So how does that actually happen? And once settlements are occurring, as a merchant, what do you see and what can you do with through the settlement process? Okay, so this is what we are going to look at, like the final thing that we'll be looking at for today, and for this webinar sessions that we are having. So settlement basically means money in the bank, and what Slydepay has done is provide functionality to help you to know when settlements are occurring and how long it will take for the money to reflect in your account, right? So in this particular section, we're looking at settlement advice notifications, which are notifications that you'll be receiving during a settlement period. The settlement processing status, and then we have the settlement grade filtering, where you see the different advices that have been sent over to the bank for settlement to occur. And then you see settlement reports, which you can also have the functionality to download. And within your settlement view, you have the ability to search based on the settlement ID or the settlement advice ID that you have for the period. So be switching now from the slide to my browser, and I'll be going into the settlements view as a merchant, right? So previously, or in the current Slydepay that we have, when settlements are running as a merchant, you basically have no idea what's going on. Okay, there's no visibility of any sort for you. On this new platform, we give you the opportunity to have an idea of what's occurring when settlements are being run. Okay, now we provide this settlement page, which starts with a filter on top. So you can basically filter based on the status of different settlements or of settlement files that have been sent to the bank for processing. You can see the different settlements. So you can filter the settlement advice that has been sent to you or has been sent to the bank over a period, right? And basically settlement advice are a list of transactions that basically will be settled for the day, and they have specific details, okay, that you would see in your reports when you download them. And then you have the ability to search the settlement grid to find a particular settlement advice that was sent on a particular day. If you would want to do any historic searches or reconciliation on your site, you can also have the opportunity to download the settlement advice that was sent to you, so you can use offline for reconciliation, right? So today we've done a couple of transactions, and then we see that our unsettled funds is 362.58, right? And we would want the money to be settled into our account. For Pinocchio services, the settlement period that they have is same day settlement. So that means the money is collected today, will be settled today. And this basically has just been done on a test environment to demo or simulate how settlements basically work. Now, I'm sure the acquiring team have different days in which settlements, of different periods in which settlements are done and which have been configured on your account, right? So to demo the settlement, one thing that I'll be doing right now is that I would my Gmail account quickly. I would, oh, okay. I don't think that I've set it up yet. Okay, apologies for that. So what is actually going to happen is that right now I'm going to trigger a settlement, right? I'm going to actually trigger a settlement process in the automated fashion for you to see how it's going to work. As you can see, we just have two advices that are showing here, and these are settlements that were done basically today, earlier on this morning, and then yesterday, right? For collections that were done yesterday, and then early on this morning. Okay, and from the grid you can see the date the settlement run, the time it run, the institution or the bank that is settling you, basically the branch that the settlement is going to occur to, or your account is located, the account name for which the money is going to enter. So here we have Sherry Pinocchio account, the account number that the money is going to be placed in, the account number of the account where the money is going to be placed, the service that is going to be settled. So if you have multiple services, you see for each and every single service the settlement advice for that service, and then the number of transactions that are involved in that settlement advice, the currency in which the money is going to be settled in, and then the value to expect in your account at settlement, the value to expect in your account at settlement. Then we have the status of the settlement, which here you can see as processed. There are different statuses of the settlement. Here we have generated, which basically means that the settlement file has been generated on Slydepay, but it's yet to be sent over to the bank for processing. We have delivered. This is where the settlement file has been sent to the bank, and basically if it needs to be dropped in the server at the bank, it tells you that that dropping has happened. If it needs to be sent via email, it lets you know that basically that process has successfully happened. Then you have the status of your advice as delivered. Then you have acknowledged. Acknowledged basically means that the bank has seen the advice for the day and has acknowledged that we basically have seen the advice that was sent, right? And then you have processed. Processed means that the advice that was sent has fully been processed, and at that point the money should be in your account, right? And then I would skip this dispute for now. We have cancelled, which basically shows that the settlement advice was cancelled by the bank, and this probably has to do with an operational issue which would be dealt with offline, and then the merchants would be updated on that. And then you have disputed, which means that the advice that was sent over was disputed, for which reason the settlement hasn't yet been completed, right? And communication will be sent out to all merchants to get to understand when the disputes will be resolved and when the monies would actually be settled into the account. So in real time, you can get to understand what is happening with your settlements, right? So I'm currently going to simulate a settlement process here. As you see, there's no advice that has been generated currently for the payments that we've done, the 362.58. So I am actually going to simulate the process now. So give me a couple of seconds. Please do let your questions come into the chat. And if you have any way you want to basically ask on the call, please do note them down. Okay, so what I'm actually doing right now is to generate a report to generate or to trigger the settlement process. I'm triggering it manually right now for purposes of this webinar and demo. Okay, so the settlement process has been triggered, and as you see here, the file hasn't arrived yet, but if I refresh the page basically and go to settlements, okay, so we can see that a new settlement file has been generated. The institution that's going to basically do the settlement is Stanbic. The account that's the branch where the account exists is the Junction Mall. We have the account name, which is Sherry Pinocchio account. The account number is this account number here. And then we have the service that's being settled as Pinocchio Wholesale, the number of transactions that are basically going to be settled, and the amount to expect in your account, right? As you can see, the settlement hasn't yet been completed, so we still have our unsettled funds as 6362.58, right? One other thing that you can do is that you can download the settlement advice that was sent. You can basically use it offline for recon purposes. Okay, and that's a feature that has been asked for a very long time. So currently, you can download your transactions that were included in a settlement and then get to use it offline for any operational tasks that you have to do or reconciliation. Okay, so now we see that the status of the settlement is sent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward the process and then basically complete the settlement at simulate the situation where the settlement has been completed at the bank. Some minutes whilst I do that. Okay. So currently I've been able to simulate the process where the settlement has been completed at the bank. And if I should refresh the page again, I hope this doesn't take me to transaction. Okay, if I should refresh the page again, you would see that the settlement basically has been processed, right? You can see that the settlement has been processed. We can download the settlement report. Give it a few seconds. Okay, so open. And as you can see here, we have the settlement report. So this is all transactions that were settled. Okay, so all transactions that were settled here. So in this report, you basically can see, I would like to expand it. So you can see the dates for settlement, right? You can see the service that was settled for. You can see the reference that was entered for the payment that was made. You can see basically these amounts were credited to their account. You can see the amounts that were debited, that were paid by the customer, right? And then credited to your account. And then you can see the service charge per transaction. So for each transaction, how much is the service charge here? So you see that in this section. You see the currency, basically, that the settlement was done in. This basically is the user that processed the settlements, basically, for other purposes. Then you can see which user made payments for this particular transaction, which is Friday below. You can see the details of the user. Then you can see the bank transaction details for this particular transaction, the reference from the merchant when the payment was made, right? And then the status of the transaction, so which is basically confirmed. So transactions that are settled are only confirmed transactions. Then here we have a narration showing that this amount was paid to Pinocchio Wholesale, and this is what has been settled into the account. So this is basically how the settlement advice report looks like for you to download and use offline. And we can see here, we can basically filter and see transactions that are in particular statuses and settlements that are in particular statuses. We have delivered, we have disputed, we have none. And if we do go to processed, we can see all processed settlements, right? So these are basically settlements that have run for this particular date. Now we can look at settlements that have been done, that were done yesterday. As you can see, we can see this particular one, the amounts that was settled. We can look at settlements that have done over the last 7 days. Okay, so the last 7 days, we've had 3 settlements being done. And we can go on to look at settlements that were done over the last 30 days, right? So we can see all the monies that were settled over the last 30 days for each and every single settlement run that was done at the bank, the number of transactions that were involved in. And then you can basically do a custom range. So if you want to see settlements that were done on a particular date and then get the reports for those, download the reports for those, you can also do that, right? So this brings us to the end of our demo session of the webinar. I would quickly want to move into a Q&A. Right, but before I move into a Q&A, I just want to do a quick recap. So for this webinar, we've looked at the merchant account access. We've looked at transaction management, that merchants have the functionality and the capability to manage transactions and understand how a transaction came to be through the orders. We've looked at sub-account creation and management. We've seen branch management, which enable you to install collections from devices that are set up, such as the USSD point of sale. And then we've also seen the ability to set up an API app, which is very synonymous to the API configs that you currently have on Slydepay. And the fact that you can set up multiple API apps for different online collections that you would want to do, or different applications that you have within your organization. And then we have settlement monitoring and reporting. We've looked at in real time and simulated how settlements are run when the reports come in, the different statuses of a settlement advice, the ability to filter by the date or the status of a settlement advice. And then as the advice itself, you can see at hindsight the details that have to do with that particular advice, the advice ID, the date the advice was generated. You can look at the amounts that's due to be settled. You get to know the account and the bank and the branch that the monies are going to be settled in. And then basically you can download a report of the settlement for which you can use offline for reconciliation or any other offline task, right? Or departmental tasks that you have. And I would like you to basically know that all the information that we've spoken about here will be available in the merchant user manual, where you'd see detailed explanations and flows of how you can go about setting up a brand, setting up users, viewing and monitoring settlements, and other functionalities that the different users with their roles will be able to perform in the new Slydepay platform, right? So at this point, I would think we've gone a little bit beyond time, but then it's Q&A, and I would start off by reading what we have in the chat. Any questions that have come through in the chat? Okay, so we have Lily that says, okay, good one on user management. All right, thank you very much, Lily. I hope that it basically, this first version of it meets what you need to do within your organization, and then also looking forward to feedback from you on how we can improve it. And then we have Elom. Is Elom still on the call? Okay, so Elom asks what happens to history of branch transactions after they are removed. Okay, so after a branch is removed, the transactions still remain. And for history purposes or for audit purposes, you get to see that a transaction was done at this particular branch, but basically the branch doesn't exist anymore. So the transactions still do exist, right? Any questions? Okay, so Mr. Nano said, does this mean the merchant has to trigger the settlement before it is done? No, Mr. Nano. So the settlement is triggered by the Slydepay system. It's basically on a schedule. Okay, so at a particular time every day, based on the merchants that need to be settled, the process would be triggered. What I actually did was that I had to simulate it because it's not yet time for it to be triggered on our test environment. But then you can actually have operations do a manual trigger, and that's what I did. And automated settlement means that it's done by Slydepay and not the merchant. So the merchants cannot trigger settlements. So based on your settlement preferences, that's when the monies are going to be pushed into your account. Right. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so we have Mr. Doe. He's asking, I think the upgrade is a great improvement. Thank you very much. With a lot of functionalities, we can't wait to have it. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Doe, and we are very excited and looking forward to each and every single merchant using it, and also getting feedback from you to improve the service. All right. Any questions from anyone? Happy to take all your questions at this point. I know it's been a long session today, and very grateful for sticking with me through it. So please, if you have any questions, do let me know. So to ask the questions, you can type in the meeting chat or the webinar chat, or you can raise your hand, please. Okay, I would assume that there are no questions from anyone. Nanako, do you have any final takes before we bring the session to a close?
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I thank everyone for joining this call. If you have any other queries, you can either send me an email or give me a phone call if you need some clarification. And also, I'll communicate when you'll be given access to this platform to try your hands on once it goes live. So manuals will be shared with you. And for those who will also share login credentials, for those who are new to this, for those who already use the first version of this platform, when you log in, once we go live, you see the other updates on it. So that is what I just wanted to add.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Nanako. Mr. Hatchful, do you have any comments or submissions to say before we bring the session to a close?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So I'm very grateful for each and every single person that's here for making the time this afternoon. So both afternoons basically to go through the new platform that we have for you. It's been a lot of work and exciting work on our end to make sure that we can deliver this to you. And we are very much looking forward to each and every single one of you logging in on the first days and letting us know how the new platform helps you to provide services and value to your customers. So on this note, I would like to say thank you once again for making the time and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. All right.